He said it like a joke, with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. "I will pay you $2 million if you read this document." Everyone laughed. The room expected the single dad to refuse. But when he began to read, the billionaire stopped smiling, and by the final line, no one in that room was breathing. If stories of unexpected kindness, hidden brilliance, and life-changing moments move you, like the video and subscribe to True Kindness Tales right now, because this story will stay with you long after it ends. The conference room on the 48th floor overlooked a city that never seemed to rest, all glass and steel and ambition, and yet Daniel Reyes felt invisible the moment he stepped inside. He was 36, a single father of an 8-year-old girl, and today he was not there as a guest but as maintenance staff, pushing a quiet cart with cleaning supplies while men and women in tailored suits debated figures that sounded larger than entire neighborhoods. Daniel kept his head down, moving methodically, because that was how he survived, by being unnoticed. Life had trained him that way ever since his wife passed away 3 years earlier, leaving him to balance night shifts, school lunches, and bedtime stories with a gentleness that masked constant exhaustion. As he wiped the long polished table, a voice cut through the room, calm and commanding. Victor Harrington, the billionaire whose name crowned skyscrapers and headlines, was bored. The meeting had stalled, consultants circling the same conclusions without courage. Harrington leaned back, tapping a thick document against the table. He spoke suddenly, eyes drifting to Daniel as if seeing him for the first time. "You," he said, amusement curling his lips. "I will pay you $2 million if you read this document aloud." Every word. Laughter erupted. It was clearly meant as entertainment, a display of power, a reminder that money could turn people into props. Daniel froze. He felt heat rise to his face, not from shame but from something older, a memory of nights spent reading aloud to his daughter, Sophia, practicing clarity and patience, teaching her that words mattered. Harrington's gaze sharpened, expecting refusal or stumbling. $2 million was a fantasy, an insult dressed as generosity. Daniel should have declined, apologized, and returned to the safety of invisibility. Instead, he asked one simple question, his voice steady. "May I?" The laughter faded. Harrington gestured lazily. A printed document slid across the table. Daniel picked it up, noticing the density of language, the legal precision. He took a breath, straightened his posture, and began to read, not fast, not slow, but with respect for the words themselves. Within minutes, the room shifted. Heads lifted, pens stopped tapping. Daniel didn't just read, he understood. He paused naturally at clauses, emphasized risks, clarified implications through tone alone. When he reached a complex section, he adjusted, his voice reflecting comprehension rather than rote recitation. Harrington sat forward, confused, then intrigued. This was not what he had paid for. This was something else entirely. As Daniel continued, memories threaded through his voice, though no one else could see them. Years earlier, he had studied law at night, juggling classes with part-time work, driven by a belief that understanding systems was the first step to protecting people. When Sophia was born prematurely, everything changed. Medical bills mounted, his wife's health declined, and the future narrowed into survival. After her passing, Daniel left school, choosing stability over ambition, taking whatever work allowed him to be present for his daughter. The document in his hands now described an aggressive acquisition strategy. Brilliant on paper but ethically fragile, exposing communities to risk while shielding investors. Daniel read every word faithfully, but something subtle happened as he progressed. The room began to hear what the document actually meant. Harrington's legal team exchanged glances. One executive cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Daniel reached the final page and finished the last sentence with quiet finality. Silence followed, heavy and complete. Harrington stood slowly. "Where did you learn to read like that?" he asked, not mocking now, but searching. Daniel answered honestly. "By reading to my daughter. And by studying, once." Harrington picked up the document, flipping through it as if seeing it anew. "What do you think this does?" he asked. It was not a test anymore. Daniel hesitated, aware of the power imbalance, then spoke carefully. "It makes money," he said. "But it also moves risk to people who won't be in this room to argue back." The truth landed harder than any insult. Harrington dismissed the meeting with a wave. One by one, the executives left, leaving a billionaire and a janitor alone with a document that had lost its armor. Harrington finally laughed, not cruelly, but with surprise. "I offered you $2 million, he said. "I keep my word." Daniel shook his head gently. "I didn't read it for money. Harrington studied him, seeing past the uniform, the fatigue, the humility. Then read something else, he said, handing Daniel a blank notepad. Write what you would do instead. Hours passed. Daniel wrote policies shaped by fairness, by lived experience, by nights worrying about rent and mornings packing lunches. Harrington read in silence, his expression changing line by line. For the first time in years, he felt challenged not by intellect alone, but by conscience. The next morning, headlines broke quietly, then loudly. Harrington Industries announced a revised strategy that stunned analysts and competitors alike, not because it promised higher profits, but because it deliberately slowed them. The new plan protected local workers, reinvested in struggling communities, and removed several clauses that had quietly shifted risk onto those with no voice. Inside the company, confusion turned into debate, and debate into reluctant respect. At the center of it all was a question no one could answer publicly: why would a billionaire change course overnight? The answer sat in a small apartment across town, where Daniel Reyes was tying his daughter's shoelaces before school, still wearing the same worn jacket, still living the same careful life. A black car stopped outside his building later that day. Harrington stepped out alone, no cameras, no entourage. He asked Daniel to walk with him. They talked, not about money first, but about Sophia, about loss, about how easily people are dismissed when they don't look powerful. Harrington admitted something he had never said aloud. For years, he had measured intelligence by confidence and worth by wealth, and in doing so, he had surrounded himself with echoes. Daniel's reading had broken that illusion. Harrington offered him a position, education funded, a role shaping ethical policy, and yes, the $2 million placed in a trust for Sophia's future. Daniel didn't answer immediately. He asked for time, because choices mattered. That evening, he read Sophia a bedtime story, her favorite, pausing to explain words the way he always did. She listened, eyes bright, then asked, "Did you help someone today, Dad?" Daniel smiled and said he thought they helped each other. Days later, he accepted, not as a savior, but as a voice. The story didn't end with riches changing a man overnight, it ended with responsibility taking root. Harrington learned to listen. Daniel learned that being seen didn't mean losing himself. And Sophia grew up knowing that words, when read with care and courage, could change the direction of lives. If this story moved you, reminded you that kindness and quiet strength still matter, like the video and subscribe to True Kindness Tales. Because sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the one that changes everything.